Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. My name's Thomas Hare. I'm the Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. I'm speaking to you today from Newburyport, Massachusetts, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our first live webinar event in our summer seminar series. Today's webinar, Successfully Diversifying Your Amazon Sales Strategy, features Shannon Roddy of Marketplace Seller Courses, a PDMI education partner. As an Amazon keynote speaker and e-commerce consultant, Shannon has worked with more than 100 brands and manufacturers to launch, grow, and protect their brands on Amazon. He's successfully helped launch more than 23 #1 new releases, 4 #1 bestsellers, and 29 Amazon Choice products. Shannon will be discussing some key areas of understanding for performance marketers as they look to expand their efforts on Amazon. However, before we get started, a couple pieces of housekeeping for you. In your control panel as attendees, you'll see a tab entitled Handouts. By clicking there, you'll find 3 PDFs. One is a copy of today's presentation, which we urge you to take a look at towards the end of the presentation. A one sheet from Shannon describing more of his educational and coaching services that includes a live link to his site for more information, and a PDMI membership brochure. Please feel free to download those handouts and review them at your leisure. In addition, you'll see a questions tab. That's where you'll be able to send in your questions for Shannon for a brief Q&A following his presentation. If you have a question that comes up during this process, please type it in there and we'll be fielding them later on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Shannon. Thank you for joining us today, Shannon. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's my pleasure to be here. And as you mentioned, I'm going to be talking about Amazon today. And what I'm really excited about is sharing information that's going to be helpful for brands, whether or not they're selling on Amazon yet, or they're currently selling on Amazon. But here's basically the topics that we're going to cover. Number one, how to survive and thrive really in any environment. And again, this is going to be applicable to your whole business. We're going to start with some foundational principles there. We'll cover specifics of Vendor Central versus Seller Central as it applies to Amazon. And then lastly, we'll get into some specific Amazon diversification strategies that you can use to ensure that your business stays successful despite what comes in the future. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started with our first topic, as it were, how to survive and thrive. And I wanted to start off with this incredible story told by Dr. Henry Cloud from the book, 9 Things You Simply Must Do to Succeed in Love and Life. Some great nuggets here. And it was brought about this encounter that he had with a friend of his who ran a business. And he asked him what he was doing that week. And he said, well, we're playing war games at our company. He said, well, what do you mean war games? He said, well, every year we take a whole week out of our business and we consider future bad scenarios that may impact our business. Things like interest rates changing or costs increasing or decreasing. They look at the market. What happens if an unexpected competitor comes in and challenges us? And then they basically ask themselves the question, if this happened, could our business survive? And if the answer is no, then they put protections and safeguards in place to ensure that not only will they survive those situations, but they can actually thrive. And I love this principle because it's so proactive. And it's actually something that Dr. Stephen Covey talks about in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The principle number 1, be proactive. And he puts it this way, you can either act or be acted upon. In a business sense, it's so important that we're proactive so that we can act and not simply be acted upon by the environment, by the circumstances as it relates to our business. And so he talks about being in a seminar, a 3-day seminar with business leaders who are actually already undergoing a challenge, and they ask themselves these 3 questions. Number 1, what happened in the past? Number 2, what will likely happen in the future? And number 3, what can we do about it? So even if a situation has already happened, the goal is, what can I do to be proactive in that situation? So I'm not simply reacting, but I'm actually proactively pushing forward. And so this is kind of a principle that we're going to talk about throughout the whole webinar as it relates to Amazon. This is another great question. Again, which is better, prevention or intervention? And we know from a cost-effective standpoint, prevention is almost always better than intervention, right? It's always better to pay to maintain your vehicle and put oil in the engine than to get stranded on the side of the road and have to call a tow truck and have to get your engine or even your entire car replaced, right? It's much more costly to do prevention, than to do intervention. but in some cases, prevention actually equates to survivability. And so wearing a seatbelt, for example, may be the only option to actually prevent a bad situation. In some cases, intervention is not an option. So the goal is, what can we do to be preventative as opposed to simply rely on intervention after something bad already happens to our business? This is a good friend of mine, Eric Koymans. He's the founder of Harnessing Strengths, a brilliant e-commerce and digital marketing thought leader. And he relentlessly preaches 5 key aspects of diversification. And so he said, for any business to be successful, you have to focus on diversification in these 5 areas: product diversification, marketplace diversification, team diversification, marketing, and e-commerce, right? So we want all of those to be diversified. And when he first told me this, I really pushed back and I said, you know what? I kind of see where you're going with this, but maybe if you can dominate in one area and just be good at one thing. I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And he talks about the hedgehog concept. What can you do better than anybody else in the world? And what I realized is there's a sort of a short term and a long term. And so in the short term, you do want to do what only you can do really, really well. But that doesn't mean that over the long term that you don't change and diversify and expand, or as Steve Jobs put it, reinvent yourself. And so when we have these conversations, we looked at 3 great examples, and that was enduring brands diversify. And you look at companies like Apple, Coca-Cola, and Amazon, they have done such a good job of diversifying. Yes, Apple still makes great computers, but they also make phones and tablets and music devices, and they have streaming services and software. You know, Coca-Cola doesn't just sell soda anymore. Dasani, their water brand, is one of their largest contributors to their bottom line. And then again, of course, Amazon is relentlessly diversifying their business models. So when Amazon started, again, it was just selling books online. And we can see that just from that aspect, they diversified not just from books, but to any consumer products. I mean, there's almost nothing that you can't buy on Amazon. In addition to that, they also offered Prime memberships, which increases it's huge, substantial revenue for their bottom line. They expanded and diversified into music and video and Amazon devices. And lastly, and probably most importantly, Amazon Web Services, which brought in $35 billion last year. And if it was a separate company, if valued as a separate company, it would be one of the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. Okay, that's their diversification strategy, because they didn't just stick with selling books online. In addition, they bought companies that operate independently, like Zappos and Ring, and all that is part of their massive diversification strategy. Basically, if Amazon.com goes under, Jeff Bezos' fortune is still relatively secure. Okay, I want to give you an example and tell a story about shipping diversification. So again, this is how Amazon thinks and how they've been able to survive so well. So this scenario happened several years ago. Their UPS contract was up for renewal, and Amazon wanted to negotiate lower rates. And UPS thought about it and basically said, no, we're not going to renegotiate. And basically UPS felt like, hey, we're the only company that you can really use to get your products out. So what Amazon did, essentially behind their backs, was they integrated with FedEx, and they also started utilizing the US Postal Service more. And when it came time to come to the negotiation table, Amazon actually shut off UPS for 72 hours straight. And the UPS orders went from daily millions of orders to a couple a day. And within 3 days, basically, UPS completely collapsed and Amazon was able to negotiate those discounted rates. And the point here is that Amazon had alternative shipping options and UPS didn't, right? UPS didn't have other suppliers or companies that use them as big as Amazon that could take the load. If they could say, hey, you know what, Amazon, we don't really need your business, we've got other companies. That would put UPS in a position of leverage. When you have options, you hold more cards at the table and you have leverage over the other companies that you're working with. And when you don't have options, you're essentially at your mercy. And that's what this entire webinar is going to be about. So in addition to Eric's 5 key aspects of diversification, I've added 3 more: sourcing diversification, tools diversification, and logistics diversification. So we're going to kind of hit all of those as well as we talk about them specifically as they relate to Amazon. Now, the impact of COVID-19 obviously impacted probably not only every business, but every individual in almost the entire world. And we saw from a business standpoint, it really tested companies whether or not they were diversified, right? What if your product was non-essential? That essentially shut down sales, right? What if your only sourcing method was completely cut off, or a team member that you relied upon became unavailable for whatever reason, right? Or what if one of your channels got shut down, right? So it really tested companies across this diversification model. Now, as it related to Amazon, there was usually 3 scenarios that we found most companies that we worked with in. The first one was vendor central. So companies selling on vendor central that were deemed non-essential. So if you weren't selling baby formula or food, toilet paper, or hand sanitizer, basically Amazon stopped issuing purchase orders for your product, and they also didn't prioritize fulfillment. So even if you were essential to some extent, they weren't prioritizing fulfillment, and companies were literally looking at their detail pages on Amazon, and it would say not available, and they had plenty in their warehouse, and they didn't have a way to get them to the customer. They didn't have a way to make them available on Amazon. They were essentially completely cut off overnight because they were relying completely on Vendor Central as their only channel to sell on Amazon. Now, companies that had more of a hybrid model were either selling on Vendor Central and Seller Central, or Seller Central, but relied exclusively on Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA, were also caught in the same situation. That is, they didn't prioritize fulfillment. Amazon was not prioritizing fulfillment for their products, which means in some cases, they weren't shipping those products out for weeks. So a customer might look at the detail page and say, this product will be available in 3 or 4 weeks, which would probably prevent them from ordering. And in some cases, Amazon prevented them from restocking. So they'd say, hey, you can't send any more inventory in. We're making more room for essentials. So companies that relied exclusively on Fulfillment by Amazon also extremely impacted by coronavirus. Now, the last model that we saw, and this is where companies that were diversified and had this option did really well, and that's they had a combination of Fulfillment by Amazon and merchant fulfilled, and this allowed them to continue selling their products, and in some cases they even had multiple shipping options. So again, we'll talk about that: UPS, USPS, etc. They were not just relying on a single channel or a single shipping method to get their products out. And just quick recap: when we saw companies that amidst coronavirus get completely shut down, we saw other ones that did 3-4x revenue due to coronavirus and people staying at home and actually increasing their purchases on Amazon. The question was whether or not companies were available to fulfill that by having the right model set up. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about Vendor Central versus Seller Central and just provide clarity. We're going to start really baseline and then get a little more advanced as we get into it. But essentially, Vendor Central is referred to as 1P or first party, right? So it was the main model that Amazon started off with. It's really geared towards companies who have a B2B model, and it's a wholesale model very similar to most retailers. They're issuing a purchase order, you're sending in products, they're basically taking care of everything. Seller Central, on the other hand, is referred to as 3P for third-party sellers, and it's geared towards companies who are running more of a B2C model. Even within Seller Central, you can still use Fulfillment by Amazon, or you can do merchant fulfilled. Both options are available, but there's a lot of benefits of Seller Central. And even when we look at the diversification, understand that there's been a huge shift over the past 2 or 3 years of companies that were selling on Vendor Central that are now selling exclusively on Seller Central, or both. And for the first time, I'm going to say 2.5 years ago, Seller Central actually outsold 1P in terms of sales. So in the first time in Amazon's history, we saw more sales go through Seller Central than Vendor Central, and I actually believe that's a trend that will likely continue as we move forward. Okay, so when it comes to opportunity, Vendor Central, currently invitation only. About 1.5 years ago, Amazon basically kicked off all the companies that were doing less than $10 million annually on Amazon and said, if you want to go sell on Seller Central, that's fine, but we're only going to carry brands that are doing 10 million or more. Amazon Seller Central, completely open registration. Anybody can apply to sell there, and there's no sales restrictions. It doesn't matter if you're doing $1 million a year on Amazon or 1,000, it doesn't matter. There's no requirements or restrictions. It's open to anybody, provided that you can get past their registration. Now, Vendor Central, again, Amazon's going to buy the product at a wholesale. So, for example, 50% of your MSRP. Seller Central, you've got selling fees. You've got a referral fee, which depends on the category, typically 15%, Plus, if you're using FBA, you've got like their pick and pack fees, and you're typically looking at a pretty similar margin, about a 50% margin. So at the end of the day, for most companies, your profit margins are going to be pretty similar, vendor central versus seller central. But let's look at some of the other differences and why one platform might be preferred over another. The vendor central payment is based on the purchase order. Again, not what's sold, but what Amazon is ordering. And the net can be 30, 60, or 90 days. They have different terms that they offer. For Seller Central, the payment is based on your actualized sales, and that payment gets dispersed every 2 weeks. So in terms of cash flow, Seller Central, even though it's not every day, it's still a lot more frequent than you were typically going to see with Vendor Central. One of the things that a lot of companies need to consider for Vendor Central is that you do lose control of pricing. And that is because Amazon does not abide by any sort of MAP pricing policy, so minimum advertised pricing policy. And it's simply that their goal is to offer the lowest prices anywhere. So if they find your product anywhere off of Amazon for less, they are typically going to sell that product for less. And they have bots that go out and actually scan the UPC code of your product on Amazon against every other e-commerce website out there. And if they find your product for less on Amazon, they're off of Amazon, they're going to go ahead and actually lower your price on Amazon to much, much less. When it comes to Amazon Seller Central, it allows you to control the pricing. So again, you have control over what you set your pricing for. Amazon is still in the process of removing what's called the buy box. If you sell for less than they find that product off Amazon, they're currently involved in a lawsuit because it's viewed as anti-competitive, which it is. But initially, you have the ability to make sure that at bare minimum, when sold by you as a seller, as opposed to Amazon, you can control the pricing of your products. Now, when it comes to inventory, again, with Vendor Central, Amazon controls all the inventory. That's not totally a bad thing, but it does mean that you don't have the ability to, say, for example, retain ownership of your inventory. If you need to do a recall, if you need to do a quality control check, even if your inventory is at FBA, Amazon's Fulfillment by Amazon warehouses, it still stays in your control and your ownership until that product is sold and shipped to a customer. So again, we're looking at all the pros and cons between the different platforms. Now, when it comes to marketing, we've seen a huge shift over the past few years from Vendor Central to Seller Central. So it used to be that all of the benefits were exclusive to Vendor Central. And what happened is Amazon rolled out brand registry, their new Amazon brand registry platform. And what we saw is them start to migrate these benefits over and give them typically for free to companies who had brand registry in the Seller Central platform. So things like A+ content, that used to be called enhanced brand content on Amazon, is now available free in Seller Central for companies that have brand registry. The ability to add videos at the top of your listing underneath your primary image block also used to be exclusive to Vendor Central. Now it's available in Seller Central as well, and the ability to add even related video shorts. All of those are free, and you can add multiple videos to your product listings. You just have to have a registered trademark to get that brand registry. And lastly, brand ads, again, formerly known as headline search ads, and Amazon storefronts, where you can build a beautiful storefront, and you can put different videos and content and direct links to your products. Have more of a landing page is really, really huge benefit and asset. Again, available through Seller Central with brand registry. I'll come back to this actually when we talk about marketing, but the unique thing about storefronts is you can actually add what's called a custom storefront tag and actually generate a custom URL. So if you want to drive traffic to your Amazon storefront, you can actually track any incoming traffic and revenue generated through that link. Very, very helpful when driving off Amazon traffic. Okay, customer communication. Through Vendor Central, Amazon handles all customer service. Now, with Seller Central, if you're using Fulfillment by Amazon or FBA, Amazon has the ability to handle most of the fulfillment and, as a result, most of the customer service. Because Amazon shipped the product out, if a customer wants to know where their product is, they're going to likely contact Amazon. However, you still have the ability to engage with customers directly, which you don't with Vendor Central. And one of the ways that you can do that is actually by proactively sending out feedback emails, either engaging with customers, asking them for a product review, providing them more helpful information about how to use the product, maybe sort of unboxing, if you will. And that ability to engage with your customers really is important. So a lot of companies think of this from an ROI standpoint and say, well, Vendor Central is going to handle our customer service. Great, we can just kind of take that off our plate. Amazon's going to handle it. But the thing that I want you to remember here is that Amazon's goal is to just make sure customers are satisfied, which typically just means if they have a problem with your product, they're just going to issue them a refund. As a brand owner, typically what you want is to walk the customer through the issue. Maybe they were using it wrong. Maybe they received an ineffective or defective product. Maybe the product was damaged in shipping. And what you want to do is explain how to use it correctly, and or in some cases ship them a replacement product. This really increases customer engagement. It helps build what I think is the most important thing on Amazon, which is brand equity, right? Customers' perceived value of your brand and company. And so even though it's a cost, the benefit to brands is really, really significant. Where else are you going to get that level of feedback or the ability to engage with your customers directly? Most companies, unless you're taking phone calls, do not have the ability to engage with your customers directly. And with Amazon, huge platform and huge opportunity to engage, especially since these are not your customers per se, but they're actually Amazon's customers. So that direct contact is really, really important and significant. So kind of in summary, Vendor Central, definitely easier to manage as a platform, but Seller Central increases control. So we'll walk through some of the different aspects of this. But if you look at it from an ROI standpoint, you're typically going to see greater impact if you have the ability to engage with your audience more directly and maintain MAP pricing. So again, really, really critical if you're selling into big box as well, because everybody looks to Amazon for pricing. And if they all see that Amazon is selling your product for less than you've told them they can advertise your product for, that's usually going to cause and create some pushback among retailers. So depending on your setup, again, whether or not you have an invitation to Vendor Central, I would say that hybrid models can be very, very effective. So if you're already on Vendor Central exclusively, I would recommend also taking the time to get set up on Seller Central so you've got that backup in place. Again, you can do both platforms. Amazon's requirement essentially is you can't sell the same ASIN or the same product, the exact same product, on both platforms at the same time. However, we've seen situations where a product is sold via Vendor Central and Amazon doesn't issue another PO. They run out of stock. Well, you can immediately engage your Seller Central inventory and turn that on so that the product continues to be available to the customer directly through your Seller Central account. Similarly, in some cases we work with a lot of companies that are migrating from Vendor Central to Seller Central. And so in those cases, we'll actually have to deal with what's called retail contributions, which means you have all these listings that you created in Vendor Central and you're trying to make changes in Seller Central. You don't see those changes on the detail page. Essentially, it means that you've got to get some things removed because of the contributions through Vendor Central. So hybrid models can work really well. And again, it just depends on the product, right? It depends on if your prices are being challenged off Amazon. It depends on whether or not the product is confusing at all to use, or ever have defects or situations where customers might have challenges using the product. So you really have to decide on a product by product basis, but a lot of companies do use a hybrid model between both platforms. Okay, now I kind of want to get into the meat of the presentation, actually talk about Amazon diversification as a whole. So I'm really, really excited to go through this, and I'm assuming this is where a majority of the questions are going to come up as well. Okay, so let's just start off with product diversification. The first question you have to ask is, do I have more than one category that I'm selling in, right? So if you sell a specific product or even a specific line of products, if they all fall in the same category, that might be a situation where you really want to focus on diversifying. And it could be anything from household to personal care, tools. There's so many different categories on Amazon, but really the question is, if a category is affected as a whole, are you able to survive? And again, going back to that 9 things question, if you undergo this challenge, can your brand survive? Then the other thing that you can do is look at emerging trends. So not just products that exist and product lines that are existing, but actually new ones that are up and coming. And there's some great research tools out there to discover which products may be good products to consider manufacturing or selling in the future. You can look at what's selling well out there using tools like Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout also just released a tool called Cobalt. It is an enterprise level software, and that is actually being used by more and more brands to determine which products they're going to bring to market as opposed to retail. So it used to be they'd look at retail trends and see what was selling and not selling. Right now, that's almost impossible. And so we see, again, a lot of companies shifting from focusing just on retail to focusing more on Amazon, because it does get such a massive amount of customers. Right now, over 65% of all product searches start on Amazon, and last year Amazon did over 50% of all e-commerce. And with the impact of COVID and coronavirus globally, we're seeing an increase in Amazon purchases. I know we personally have seen an increase just products that we order for our home, but across the board, Amazon's getting more traffic and more people are selling and buying their products online. So you can use tools like Cobalt or Helium 10 to discover new product categories and new emerging trends from a culture standpoint, from a customer standpoint, and see which products you want to put into development and actually bring to market. Research using those tools to do research. The last aspect of product diversification is seasonality. So again, if you're selling sunscreen, great during the summer months, not so great in the middle of winter, and vice versa. If you've got a product line that does really well, sort of gifts, over Christmas or the holidays in Q4, that's great. But what about July? And again, you can look at Amazon as a model for this. Their diversification is so critical that what they've done is they said, okay, our greatest sales all come in Q4, right between Black Friday and essentially the Christmas holiday. What can we do in the middle of July, which is our dead time? So that's where Amazon actually created their own holiday called Amazon Prime Day. And we've seen just massive amounts of sales by Amazon, essentially artificially creating their own holiday season to spread out the sales so that it wasn't all lumped in one section. What happens if you've got a situation that comes up and impacts the holiday season, for example? How do you stay diversified so everything isn't all in one place and all your eggs aren't in one basket? So again, looking to Amazon as a thought leader in that. This is actually a screenshot from Helium 10's tool. And again, you can look at search volume as it plays out over an entire year. And so if you've got products already on Amazon or you're looking to get them on Amazon, you can actually see the trends of search volume for those products and start to map that out so you can diversify in order to maintain more consistent sales throughout the year as opposed to all at one time. Okay, team diversification, also super important. We talked about what happens if a team member becomes unavailable. And so part of this comes into looking at things like cross-training, making sure your employees are cross-trained, but also looking at things like customer service. Do you have more than one person fully trained to handle Amazon customer service? Amazon has incredibly high metrics when it comes to customer service. You have to answer every email within 24 hours, even on the weekends, even on holidays. And for the times of the year where your sales do ramp up, you are going to see an increased need for customer service. Again, you're going to have to do this for Seller Central, not for Vendor Central. But as I mentioned, it's really an opportunity for brands, not simply an added cost. So do you have teams that are cross-trained to handle customer service on Amazon, who can handle returns, who can handle different notices that come up? Customer service or the interactivity on Amazon isn't just about servicing the customer. There's also various health metrics that you have to be aware of, making sure those are being monitored consistently. Do you have more than one person trained to do that in order to keep your Amazon account active? Inventory and products. So again, do you have different parts of your team or team members that handle things like FBA shipments, getting products into Amazon, or listing new products on Amazon, whether it's copy or graphic design? Again, it's making sure that you're diversified. So if you lose somebody or you don't have access to somebody for a period of time, it doesn't shut everything down. You need to be able to keep moving forward regardless of what happens with any one individual. And then, as I mentioned, shipping and fulfillment. Make sure that you've got, if not more than one person, more than one team who can handle shipping and fulfillment into Amazon and or directly to customers. This is sort of a caveat side note, but also super valuable and important. If you are doing merchant fulfilled, we honestly see for brands and manufacturers that be the #1 reason for account suspension is late shipping. And in some cases, it's not even that they shipped it late, it's simply that Amazon didn't get the tracking information. So basically the way it works is when an order is placed, Amazon expects you to receive that order if it's going to be merchant fulfilled, and then you need to confirm that order and actually add a tracking number back to Amazon. Within a period of time, they're actually going to track the tracking information to make sure that it's delivered on time. And if all of those metrics aren't met, Amazon's likely going to suspend your account, or at the very minimum, suspend your ability to do merchant fulfilled. So when it comes to that standpoint, having people and systems in place to ensure that if any integrations fail, which we've seen happen, integrations with warehouses and shipping fulfillment houses, in some cases, Amazon received the orders, the fulfillment center and warehouse shipped it out on time, but because there was an issue with their integration, it did not confirm those shipments, it did not add the tracking information back in Amazon, and within 6 days, Amazon suspended the account and shut it down. So making sure that you've got diversified teams in place to monitor and handle all these different aspects of Amazon, because it's such an important platform, because they do everything by algorithm, you have to essentially make sure that you're operating perfectly in order to stay in line with all of their metrics. Okay, this is a fun one. I'll actually spend a little bit of time here. Marketing diversification. It used to be the duopoly, right? It was Google Ads and Facebook, and they just kind of manhandled everything when it came to advertising online. Amazon, within the last couple of years, has quickly made it a trifecta. And what they've essentially done, or triopoly, essentially what they've done is they've increased advertising so much and so quickly and so fast, they're likely to overtake Facebook probably within the next year or so. And essentially what Amazon's doing is they are making Amazon a pay-to-play platform. So it's no longer enough just to list your products on Amazon. If you do a product search for pretty prominent product category or a search term on Amazon, everything that you're going to see above the fold, typically a brand ad and 3 or 4 sponsored product listings, are all going to be advertised. So essentially everything a customer sees when they search for a product on Amazon is going to be advertised until they start scrolling down. So Amazon, again, it's not an option to advertise anymore. It's becoming really a critical requirement for success. There's different ways you can advertise. You can advertise defensively to advertise your own brand name, your own product names, make sure nobody's hijacking those to try to drive products to their own product, whether it be a counterfeit product or in some cases just sort of a Me Too knockoff. But you can also then advertise offensively by going after the generic terms and even your competitor terms as well. So one of the things that we've noticed over the last year is even though Amazon's ramping up advertising, they're also algorithmically restricting products. So we've seen things like religious products get restricted. And so all of a sudden, if you had a religious category or a category of religious products or product lines, all of a sudden overnight, unable to advertise those. Well, how much of your sales were being driven by advertising in that category? And if that dropped off, would that have the ability to kill your business on Amazon? And if it is, you've got to be diversified. This is another good example, bullet in a shot glass. Amazon prohibits any advertising of any weapons or firearms or that sort of thing. Obviously, this is a bullet that's meant for decoration to be used in a glass. It's not actually just selling bullets, but Amazon categorized the product as a weapon because it has the word bullet in the title. So again, it's a restricted product. They're not allowed to advertise this product on Amazon. And in some cases, it can be seemingly completely arbitrary. Maybe your products get restricted, but a competitor's products don't. And while it seems unfair and you can appeal it, there's very little chance that that's actually going to be the case. Now, this is another sort of area that I think is really relevant and important, and that is how do I diversify marketing for an innovative product? And typically the scenario that we see in regards to this is somebody's created a product, a very innovative product, and the problem is because it's innovative, there is no SEO. So looking at SEO keyword research, search engine optimization keyword research, again, using tools like Helium 10, what are customers searching for? And what is the search volume for those searches? So we can actually estimate that on a monthly basis. How many customers are searching for this? And this is actually very valuable and very valuable information to decide what products we want to sell or how we want to market our products or advertise. Excuse me, but the question is, what happens if there is no SEO? What happens if nobody's searching for your product because nobody knows it exists? This is often very, very challenging because innovative products have to have another way to market this. And so when it comes to Amazon advertising, you're essentially cut out. There's a couple different ways we can do this. Number one, video advertising is the most effective form of marketing for innovative products, right? It goes back to the old saying, they have to see it to believe it. And so the idea here is if you've got a video showing your innovative product and customers can look at it for 15 seconds and go, oh my gosh, that looks amazing. I need to buy that. I got to have that. Video advertising on Amazon can be incredibly effective. And you don't necessarily have to do it for keyword searches. There are some aspects where that's showing up in keyword search results, but there's also the ability to do what's called product attribute targeting. And this means I don't necessarily have to advertise my product for a search term, but I can advertise my product on another product. So maybe I've created a new innovative baby product, but nobody knows it exists, so nobody's looking for it. I can't advertise for the search terms because there is no search volume for it. If I'd run advertising, it's going to be virtually slim to no spend and similarly no sales. But what I can do is I can advertise my product in the baby category and also on similar or related products that essentially are hitting the same target audience. So that's really the goal. You're looking at audience. How can I reach my audience and then demonstrate and show my product and say, hey, look at what I've created. It's better, it's more unique, it's more valuable. You should buy this one instead. The other thing, and we've had a couple questions about this for the webinar registration, was driving off Amazon traffic. So there's a couple different ways to do this. Some of the most effective ones are, number one, partnership marketing. So if you've got somebody who has an audience that you can essentially share, and doing some partnership marketing where you're both cross-promoting and collaborating to promote each other's products, because typically they're going to be related products, that can be a great opportunity. And instead of them driving all the traffic, say, to your website, you can say, hey, when you guys promote us, can you drive our traffic to our Amazon listings or our Amazon storefront so you can track the sales? Partnership marketing can be very valuable. The second one is affiliate marketing. So again, there are influencers and micro influencers out there who are affiliates called Amazon Associates, part of Amazon's affiliate program. And what they can do is they can advertise your product to their audience. Again, you're looking for relevant audience, and they're actually going to get paid a commission by Amazon. And in some cases, it's very, very little. What they're looking for is economy of scale, and volume. How many products can I sell? If I have 6,000 people in my audience and your products cost $39.95, how many people can I get to buy it? And typically these companies are advertising multiple products every day on their Facebook and social media. And that's a great way to get organic sales to your Amazon. In some cases, those can be pay to play scenarios, but again, you'd have to pay for advertising anyway. If you can drive off Amazon traffic using affiliates or influencers, that can be really, really critical. So again, I'd say that influencers and affiliate marketing can typically fall together, but in some cases an influencer is not an affiliate, and those are typically going to be pay to play opportunities. That can be anything from giveaways to product reviews, like I said, to just videos. Using social media, again, looking at something like Facebook or even Google, but let's use Facebook for this example. Creating a video and tapping into an audience and creating a relevant audience, or even a lookalike audience if you're running successful ads to your website. Creating a lookalike audience and running that traffic to Amazon can be incredibly helpful to launch your innovative product on Amazon. Again, highly recommend using video because, again, they have to see it to believe it. And once they have the video, it's going to be able to essentially ignite the fuse of, oh my gosh, I've got to get this product, and Amazon is the fastest, simplest platform to do it on. You can drive that traffic straight to Amazon. The ROI is usually going to be very effective. The last thing to consider is cost per click and competition. So if you've got a category like supplements that's very, very competitive and the cost per click keeps on going up, you want to have some diversified marketing strategies that you can have other ways to drive traffic to your listings and not rely exclusively on Amazon advertising. Okay, sourcing diversification, moving on. Do you have more than one supplier, manufacturer who can manufacture your product? Do you have US-based suppliers? I know a lot of companies rely a lot on China and other countries to manufacture the products, but in situations where international trade either gets temporarily held up, or you have everything from taxes to tariffs to increase in costs, having a US-based supplier who is capable of manufacturing your product could be a part of your sourcing diversification. And at the very minimum, making sure you have multiple suppliers who can create your product is typically going to give you the ability to get more competitive pricing. Again, when you have options, you have leverage. When you don't have options, you're at their mercy. So I would say, even if you're happy with your supplier and your manufacturer, I would make sure that you have at least one or two backup options so that you always have somewhere else to go in case there ever is a situation where they're not able to create, manufacture, or provide your product. Okay, logistics diversification. We're getting close to wrapping up. Do you have multiple warehouses? If you maybe as a business only own one warehouse, do you have another warehouse that you're at least contracted with and integrated with, so that again, if a situation comes up and you're not able to ship out of your warehouse, that you have a backup, somebody else who is integrated, who's able to fulfill products for you? Do you have multiple shipping providers integrated? Again, we talked about that going back to the example with Amazon. You know, whether it's fulfillment by Amazon, UPS, USPS, FedEx, etc. Making sure that you have a backup option and not just relying on a single service provider at any given time is so, so critical. And then when it comes to Amazon, having multiple shipping options. So again, we talked a little bit about this in terms of the fulfillment by Amazon merchant fulfilled. That's going to be really, really critical for ensuring your long-term success. Now, somebody asked about this as well in the pre-registration questions. Your two primary shipping options are going to be fulfillment by Amazon or fulfilled by merchant. The third option is called SFP, or Seller Fulfilled Prime. Essentially what this does is it gives Amazon customers the ability to buy the product, get free 2-day shipping, but instead of it being fulfilled by an Amazon warehouse, it's fulfilled by you directly. So this program came about 4 or 5 years ago as a result of Amazon realizing the cost to put down a new warehouse was about $1 billion, pretty expensive. So they said, okay, again, let's diversify. If we can't put down warehouses fast enough, how can we ensure that Amazon Prime customers have access to more products without us having to front that cost? So they introduced Seller Fulfilled Prime, which basically means that a company says, okay, within this region, if maybe they're local, they only have warehouses in California, for example, that can really guarantee in that Western region, they're able to get products to customers within 2 days. They can do regional Prime. So only customers who are buying in that region will see the Prime badge. For customers who are buying in Boston, for example, will not see the Prime badge. And that is very, very high metrics. So again, right now, it's currently waitlisted. It's not necessarily invite only, but you can apply to get added to the wait list as Amazon opens that back up. Again, they are beta testing and trying and shutting down new programs every day. So don't be surprised if things change over time with Seller Fulfilled Prime. But I did want to talk about and show you guys an example of what's called dual fulfillment. So this is a company we work with, Pure Country Weavers. Same exact product, same exact price, $59.95. You can see one ships from Amazon, sold by Pure Country Weavers. The other one is ships from Pure Country Weavers and sold by Pure Country Weavers. Excuse me. So the seller is the same, but basically we have a backup shipping option. So if for any reason FBA inventory goes down, in some cases Amazon gets multiple complaints about your product and they temporarily suppress your listing, you want to make sure that you can continue filling orders using merchant fulfilled, so your merchant fulfilled doesn't go down. And in some cases, you just run out of inventory. FBA runs out, or they're transferring your inventory from one warehouse to another. so it's not available for purchase, you want to make sure that you've got a backup option. And so this is the best way to do it. Again, you've got price parity. You're always going to offer free shipping, so always make sure you wrap shipping into your product price and offer both of those on all of your products if you have the ability to do so. Okay, lastly, we're talking about tools diversification. Again, advertising, really critical. Do you have more than one advertising tool? If you're not using a service, you have another service that you can use as a backup. You never want to be reliant on one tool or one company or one service provider for any given thing. Same with inventory. If you've got an ERP system or a tool like Skubana or ShipStation that integrates with Amazon, be able to track all your orders. Do you have a backup in case there's integration issues, or in case maybe they decide to, double their prices or fees for the next year? You want to make sure that you've got a backup option that you can integrate with to switch over, so that you've got options even if things change. Feedback tool, really great one that we love, Feedback 5 by Ecom Engine. We saw in the last 6 months a lot of sellers get restricted from buyer-seller messaging. And so what this means is that they were no longer able to send emails to customers proactively asking for a product review or seller feedback. Feedback 5 integrates with Amazon's new Request a Review button, which means that even if you've been restricted, you can use this tool to be able to continue sending emails, because it's not go through buyer-seller messaging, it's a separate application, asking for customers for seller feedback and product reviews. So again, making sure you know there's the tools that are out there that you have at your disposal. So I just want to kind of end on this. Marketplace diversification, right? So if Amazon is doing more than 30% of your business, you're probably at risk. And again, this is a general number. You have to know what that number is for your business. So ask yourself, if my #1 listing on Amazon got shut down, how would that impact me as a business? And this happens all the time. If my Amazon account as a whole got suspended, how would that impact my business? Could I survive? And if the answer is no, you've got to focus on diversifying. Okay, so any point that Amazon controls too much of your traffic and too much of your business, that is, you're relying too much on one platform, you want to diversify. You've got Walmart, eBay, Target, there's tons of online marketplaces that you can apply and sell in. There's tools like Skubana that make that logistics integration much easier. But essentially the goal is diversify the traffic, diversify your audience, and diversify your risk. You never want to be in a situation where essentially instead of having a business, you have an Amazon business that Amazon can shut off at any point. Okay, so again, sort of wrapping up, key takeaways: preparation is essential for survival. Make sure you're preparing and thinking ahead of what the different options are. We have no idea what the long-term impact of COVID is, but you have to ask yourself those questions now. What if this happened? What if schools don't open next year? What if we're not able to get our products manufactured? What options do we have? Diversification is essential for success. Make sure you're diversifying across all areas that are critical for your business's survival. And note that Amazon is always changing and innovating. Are you able to stay up to date with everything that Amazon's doing? So with that, I've just got just a quick offer that we have access to. Again, you can download the PDF of this presentation. The links are hyperlinked, so you can use those. But we have our Amazon Brand Success Academy. It is a 6-course, 30-lesson, holistic overview, A to Z essentials to success, to launch, grow, and protect your brand on Amazon. That is available through that link as well. And I also offer Amazon coaching. If you'd like to look at your Amazon listings, discuss your Amazon strategy, train your team, you can book that coaching by clicking that link as well, available on the marketplacesellercourses.com website. All my contact information is here. Again, it's in the download as well, phone, email, website, or LinkedIn. And if you'd like to catch up on some of the past episodes we've released through the Marketplace Expert podcast, we temporarily put that on hold due to some challenges with COVID, but we will be starting that back up and likely in late August. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But if you have questions now, Tom is going to go ahead and take those, and we should be able to go ahead and grab some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Great work. Just a note to everyone, we've had some really good solid questions come through during the process, so thanks everyone. If you have a question still, please use that questions tab on your control panel. As Shannon noted, please do visit that handouts tab on your control panel to pick up the handouts there that we described earlier. So first question for you, Shannon, is kind of a straight up logistics question.
Yep.
Does Amazon ever have issues with picking up shipments?
That's a good question. So typically shipping into Amazon, if you're using LTL and you're using their carriers, you're basically scheduling the pickup through them. That could be a situation that, again, if they're relying on a third party, would be completely reliant on the third party. So not knowing the details of that, hard to answer that question specifically. But the answer across the board is Amazon is a business like any others and has challenges. So I'd say there's never a situation where, like, yes, Amazon is always reliable. Amazon doesn't deliver products perfectly on time all the time. They'll offer you a refund if they don't as a customer, but I would say that would be a case-by-case basis. If you're doing LTL, obviously you can schedule your own carrier to do a delivery, or you can schedule Amazon to pick up. But yeah, that's really more of a case-by-case basis question, not a specific answer for that one.
Great. Next question. All of us in the DRTV business know that TV ads drive Amazon sales. Many of our clients see strong correlation when they buy a large-scale cable buy. Do you have a multiplier that you would use as an industry standard, say for every direct online sale at, say, brand.com, the brand's website, brand.com, you would see 3 more sales on Amazon, 5 more? What is there a multiplier?
It's a good question. There isn't a multiplier because there's so many factors involved, right? The target audience, how it's geared. The one thing that I can speak to is the conversion rate. So again, on a typical e-commerce website, for example, 1.5 to 2%, 2.5% for typical e-commerce. That can be different for direct response. Again, if you're driving targeted traffic there. But if you look at a typical e-commerce website of, say, 2% average conversion rate, Amazon average is 7 to 10%. If you've got optimized listings and have everything laid out really well with A+ content, you're going to see a 10 to 15% conversion rate. And if you're a #1 bestseller, Amazon choice product, or your listing's done really, really well, has video fully built out, and it's a product that people want, you can see conversion rates up to 20, 25%. So I don't think there's a direct correlation that you could apply across the board to every category. But knowing that Amazon is a closed system that already has the customer's email address, their physical address, and their credit card, and literally they can, I saw that product. Let me look at it and see if it's available on Amazon, and within 30 seconds find it and swipe to add to their cart and purchase it. The conversion rate is so much higher. I would say that we have always seen halo effect on Amazon. So maybe a product gets a spot on the Today Show, for example, or one of the morning daily deals shows. We're always going to see a halo effect on Amazon as well. There's not a consistent multiple across the board. Again, it depends so much on the category, on the product, the price of the product, but I can tell you the conversion rate on Amazon is always going to be significant. And if you are in Seller Central, again, you're going to have less statistics on Vendor Central, and especially if you have multiple resellers selling your product, there's almost no way to tell. But if you have exclusive distribution and distribution enforcement on Amazon, which you can do, and you are selling that product directly through Seller Central using FBA or Merchant Fulfilled, you will be able to correlate and see, we spent this on our direct response, here was the spike in advertising, and you're able to start making those correlations yourself. If you don't have distribution enforcement and you have multiple resellers on the product or exclusively through Vendor Central, you just don't have the detail of what's called number of sessions, visits to your detail page by an Amazon customer within a 24-hour period, and the conversion rate. So again, I'd say that's a better way to look at it and think about it. And for example, just partnership marketing. We did an event in SoCal. It was a SoCal Moms event. We were promoting our product. We had a couple that were raffled away at the event. We had flyers in every handbag, and even though we had a coupon code that nobody used, we saw a significant spike in sales, and we were able to attribute that to that event because we had a clear representation of the data of what the sales were before that event, afterwards, and looking at the trend moving forward.
Great. Next question. Can you talk a little bit more as to how a product marketer can acquire brand registry platform status? And can you share a bit more on the top advantages?
Yeah, so brand registry is exclusive to any brand that has an active registered trademark. That means you have a trademark registration number. If you have submitted or applied for a trademark, but the trademark is still in process, you have a serial number, but not a trademark number with the US Patent and Trademark Office, Amazon will not accept that. You can use both what's called a word mark or design mark, so logo or just the text of your brand. But the benefit is if you don't have an active registered trademark, you can use Amazon's IP accelerator. Again, we can maybe submit links or send these out in a follow-up email. But Amazon's IP accelerator is a group of attorneys, essentially, and IP firms that have been vetted by Amazon, that you can actually apply for your trademark through that portal using one of their trademark attorneys. And if you do that, you'll actually get brand registry benefits within as little as 30 days, as opposed to waiting the 9 to 12 months for your trademark to be able to be registered. Now, that said, if you have a registered trademark, you 100% want to create a brand registry account. If you have a Seller Central account already, you want to log into your Seller Central account, open a new tab, create a brand registry account off of that. Even if you're not selling on Amazon, you can still create a brand registry account simply to do trademark enforcement or copyright enforcement, making sure nobody is selling a knockoff of your product or is using your photos to create their Amazon listings. You can still use that for IP infringement and reporting IP infringement. So you always, if you've got a registered trademark on Amazon, registered trademark, you want to apply for brand registry. Again, you want to do it in conjunction with your Seller Central account. I've got a great video on YouTube for brand registry and even on our website that I can, again, provide you guys the links as well. But essentially, it helps you protect your brand. It gives you increased opportunity to advertise and market your brand, and it allows you to create the brand presence on Amazon that you would not be able to have otherwise. Again, being able to create more detailed pages, landing pages, more similar to your website, whereas if you don't, you're going to be very limited in that capacity. So again, highly recommended, and if you don't have the trademark, use Amazon's IP accelerator.
All right, great. Running close up on time here. Probably time for one or two more. We'll wedge this one. You mentioned brand equity is the most important thing on Amazon. You have a couple of quick tips on how you can start building it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, number one, making sure your listings are really well optimized. If you've had third parties throw up your listings on Amazon, you want to use brand registry to take control of those and make sure that you've got really high quality product photography, really well written copy, optimized titles, videos. That is the first thing that customers see. And if they see a picture taken with somebody's iPhone, that's not going to cut it. That directly impacts your brand equity. Secondarily, making sure you use a feedback tool like Feedback 5 to ask for product reviews. If you don't, they're only going to leave reviews when they're unhappy with it. I mean, people still do leave positive product reviews, but it provides a feedback loop to ensure that you're asking for positive product reviews. And more often than not, if people have a bad experience, they'll actually reply to that email and say, hey, I have a problem with my product, can you fix it? Well, that just saved you a negative product review. So having really great customer service and proactive feedback tools in place are some of the most critical aspects. The last one, as I mentioned, is having a distribution enforcement policy in place, a map enforcement policy in place, so that you don't have 15 unauthorized resellers selling variations of your product that are new and used and bought wholesaler discount and purchased and repackaged up. You want to make sure you're controlling the platform so that you're the only seller.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. One last one,
Okay.
and then we'll step out. It's COVID related, and it's more of an overall market viewpoint. We've seen a massive shift in consumer activity to e-commerce, obviously, from traditional retail. What do you think this is going to mean for the overall competitiveness of the Amazon marketplace during the next 18 to 24 months?
I think it's going to be explosive, but again, Amazon was competitive more. The challenge is that before, up until now, really within the last 6 to 8 months, the only people who realized that really were a handful of brands and manufacturers, and mostly private labels and what are referred to commonly as FBA sellers, who were sourcing products on Alibaba, throwing them up on Amazon, and basically creating Me Too products and knockoff products. and that market is super competitive. So the platform has always been competitive. I think we're just seeing the situations where the bigger and larger manufacturers and brands are finally coming around to acknowledge that. You don't have to convince people anymore, hey, you should be on Amazon. They kind of get it now. But I would say, again, understanding fully how to optimize your listing, making sure you have a distribution and enforcement strategy in place so you don't have, 15 duplicate listings pop up if somebody searches in your product or brand name. You want to make sure that you're controlling the platform, that you're optimizing the platform. And if you can do that, you can have a huge competitive advantage by driving not only internally traffic through Amazon advertising, but also that external traffic. That gives companies who do direct marketing a huge opportunity over companies who are fighting it exclusively within the Amazon ecosphere.
Great. Well, thank you, Shannon. I'm going to rejoin you here on screen.
Fantastic.
And we really appreciate everything you've done today and taking the time to work through this and share this with our attendees. We did receive one question for the PDMI, and that was whether or not PDMI members get a discount to your additional services. The answer to that is yes. If you go through in the handouts, particularly the sales handout that Shannon has shared, that is directly linkable to his website, and that link will give you the access to the pricing for PDMI members directly. So just so you know. We appreciate, again, everybody for taking the time out to join us today. I know everyone's schedule is busy. Video of this event will be made available on our website in the coming days. We'll notify everybody when it is available. Our next summer seminar series webinar will be scheduled for Tuesday, August 18th, featuring longtime marketing expert, keynoter, and author Tim Ash, as he tackles the topic branding versus direct response. Keep an eye on your email for more information about that, or visit our website at thepdmi.com for more information and your opportunity to register. Thanks again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and your work week. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you, Shannon. Take care.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.